Hi everyone, I've met some of you before because you attended my last class, but some of you I haven't met, so welcome and thanks very much for coming. Maybe, given that you haven't all met me before, it'd be useful to just give you a very brief little bit of background about me, and it might help set the context of the content of what I'm going to do today and provide you a backdrop really to how I've arrived at some of these key points about customer service. So I started my career in the retail and hospitality trade, and I actually did a degree here at Oxford Brookes, but it was Oxford Polytechnic then, so you start to get an idea of how old I am. Way back, and I spent a number of years then working in hospitality, front of house mainly. So I had a lot of experience of delivering customer service at what I'd call the coalface, so actually customer interaction, a lot of that, and also in the retail sector as well. I then made a career move into something that has sort of been my main career, and that's been research, mainly market research. And when I started in that industry, I was lucky enough to become involved when a new kind of methodology was being developed, and that was called mystery shopping. Has anyone heard of mystery shopping? Yeah?
I want to be a mystery shopper.
You'd like to be a mystery shopper? Oh, okay. I know someone you'd like to speak to then. I might be able to arrange that.
I've done it.
Okay, so mystery shopping is where people go and have a customer experience anywhere, a whole range of different places, which I can actually give you some examples of in a moment. But the essence and the idea of it is that they report back on what the journey has been like. So it's a sort of a measurement of the customer service journey. And if you imagine that let's talk about a national retailer like, let's say, Argos. If you imagine that they've got 500 shops across the country, if you get a piece of mystery shopping data for each of those shops and then you put it all together, you can start to get a picture of what kind of customer service Argos provides. What are they good at? And what are they not so good at as a company? And then that's quite powerful information. So we were involved in doing that, and I designed and delivered mystery shopping projects for a whole range of organisations, not just retailers. I did quite a lot in the public transport sector, so London Underground and Transport for London were two of my biggest contracts. And I also did quite a lot in the financial sector, so RBS, HBOS, and NatWest, for example. So they're just some examples. So what I came away from that with was quite a lot of information about what customer service journeys look like. And I also had to report to my clients on what they were doing well at and what they weren't doing so well at. And what that told me was what's reasonably easy to achieve in terms of customer service, and what are the more difficult things to achieve. And what I want to do today is try and share some of that experience with you. I'd like to get a little bit of a feel of what you want to get out of this session. So what would be useful is that if you can just talk to your neighbour for a couple of minutes and ask them what their name is, what it is that they're currently doing. So if you've got a social enterprise that you are currently setting up or thinking of setting up, or even if you've got nothing to do with social enterprise but you're interested in this topic, I'd just like to know why you're particularly interested in this session and what you'd like to get out of it. And then what I can do is try and gear the session to you.
In probably more close.
Okay, great. So I've got a bit of background about what you want to get out of today. So what I'd planned to cover was to help you to find a useful definition for great customer service for yourselves, because it's something that we talk about a lot and sometimes we don't actually think about, well, what does it mean? And I think when you're setting out to run a venture or when you're actually running a business, it's really important to think about that and think about how you then develop and control your customer service strategy, because actually that is something that you need to have a strategy around. It doesn't just happen and become great. It needs to be planned. So as part of that, then we'll sort of go into a little bit more detail about what the key factors are in delivering great customer service. I'll also help you explore some of the common barriers and obstacles to delivering great customer service, because like many things that we study, you can look in a textbook or online and see what you should be doing, and you can go, well, that would be great and aspirational, but actually day to day, when you're under the stress and strain of a normal business or whatever you may be doing, actually being able to keep up the kinds of standards that you want can be a lot more difficult. So I'd like to help you explore that a little bit, and obviously think about ways that you might overcome those, and just get thinking about that. And then towards the end of the session, when I was putting this session together, I was thinking, okay, well, we're talking about what customer service is and what's important, how to overcome the barriers, but sometimes I think it's really key to crystallise exactly why customer service is so important, why it's critical to any venture, in fact. So that's towards the end of the session, and hopefully you'll be able to go away with some ideas about what your next steps will be in creating your strategy for great customer service. So the next thing I wanted to do was to say, well, okay, we're talking about customer service, and some of you will be aware that in my last session, which was about market research, we started off by trying to define who your customers are, and sometimes that seems really basic. But particularly for people who are running or thinking of running social enterprises, it can be a little bit more complex, because there tend to be more groups of people involved. I'm not going to spend as long today on this as I did last time, but I think it's just important that when we're thinking about customer service, who are we thinking about delivering that service to? So in terms of your businesses or your work where you're wanting to deliver good customer service, how confident are you about knowing who those customers are, who those groups are? Are you quite clear on that now? Yeah.
Is that fair to make a priority? Like, would you sort of say, well, I'll put them top of my list, then second or third?
Oh, that's good. Oh, good question. Well, I tell you what. If I just put up the key points that I've had, we can maybe talk about that. So, our customers primarily, and traditionally, we consider them to be the people who purchase whatever goods and service we're offering. So, for Jean, her product is drones, so she knows that her customers broadly are the retailers who she wants to then sell them on. But also the direct customers who might be buying them. So it might be the parents, or it might be the young adults, or young sort of probably no one younger than 16 or something.
16.
Yeah. So the young people, shall we say, who might be buying them. So that's fairly cut and dried. With a social enterprise, you've obviously got other people to keep happy, and that you're actually, if you like, in business to help. So you have the people who are your beneficiaries, and they might not be the same people as you're actually selling to. So for your business, where it's local food for local people, should we just think about who the customers are there? Would that be about selling food directly to consumers?
Yeah.
Okay. And would the beneficiaries be the people whose produce that you're selling?
They're one of the beneficiaries.
Okay.
There is another aspect to it, helping people into employment.
Yeah.
By training in sort of artisan food production or something like that.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a self-employment route in.
Great. So there's another really key dimension there in terms of social
But
impact.
that goes on later.
Fabulous. Sounds great. So they in a way are your customers too, as you're aware, which is why you've told me, because they're people who are you need to keep happy, if you like, and you need to attract to your organisation. And then thirdly, for people who not only social enterprises, actually possibly businesses who are needing to get funding for what they do. They've really got their funders as being almost a customer. I mean, not in the traditional sense, but they are a stakeholder in your business, and they're people who you need them to be happy, you need them to be satisfied. So it's important, particularly with the social enterprise people, to think about your internal and your external customers effectively. For the rest of today, I would say, going back to your question about priorities, most of what we'll talk about is primarily about these people, and possibly for you guys, these people. Okay. Because, like it or lump it, if what you're selling isn't bringing the money in, then that's kind of the critical part of the machine in terms of being able to do the good that you want to do. So that's kind of the first hurdle, if you like, that needs to be in place. Unless you've got funders who are happy to just keep funding you forever, which of course is more like a charity. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we kind of know who our customers are. Is that okay? So what I'd like to do now is think about this useful definition of great customer service. And what I've found when I've run sessions like this is that I can stand here and do lecture style and say, here are the things that are really important in customer service. But it's actually quite useful to have a think about it from your own perspective, so that you can develop your own definition that's useful for your venture or business. So what I'd like to do is ask you to work, I'll keep you working together with the person that you're sitting next to. I'd like you to think, so you two here, I'd like you to think about experience, one or more experience that you can recall that you would say was an example of poor customer service. What did you think of particular examples where you'd actually had poor service?
Yeah, mine's very different.
You're looking quite angry actually. Did you say a very bad experience?
I've still not got my refund after a month.
No, tell us about it.
But they keep on sending me bills, you know, and I'm like, I'm not paying your bill until you give me my refund. And then they've taken the money out of my bank today anyway.
Who is this?
Vodafone.
Oh, come on, let's hear about Vodafone then. Get it off your chest.
Yeah, so we kind of consistency is a key thing really, because when I'm phoning up, I'm talking to someone different each time.
Okay.
And so then they have to kind of read through the notes, or they're not reading, or they're not got the right notes. So then they've got to go through it all again and why it happened, and more times than not you end up having to repeat that again.
Yes, yeah, that's really frustrating, isn't it? Because you'd imagine that they should have some note of what your last call said, especially when they say we record our calls. So poor listening, and there's something about doing what they say they'll do. Is there something about that? So,
Sticking to their agreements.
Sticking to, so not sticking to agreement. Is there something there as well about communication? Because it sounds like...
It's all about communication, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to put you through re-experiencing your bad experiences. Let's try and make this a bit more positive now. And so these ladies here have been thinking about what examples of great customer service are, and noting down what the characteristics of it are. So if you'd like to just tell me what you noted down, I'll pop it up on the board.
Yep. Merchant mentioned about the sales, when the sales are helpful.
Sales staff were helpful. Yeah.
And to be calm.
Calm, yeah.
Very important.
So,
very important always because sometimes the customer is not very happy. And
Exactly.
always-
Yeah, just trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
And I would be happy if they provide some alternatives or solutions.
Okay.
on the spot.
So give some options for you. Yeah. Okay. You had a good point that when I came and spoke to you about the kind
For
of.
me, people need to love
Yeah.
what they are doing.
Yes.
If they love the job,
Yeah.
they learn more about this and they are better in this job.
Know the
Yeah.
product
They need
well.
to be happy.
Yeah.
And if they are happy what they are doing, they
Yeah.
offer better customer service.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's something about kind of being authentic, I think, that I picked up from that they're genuine about delivering good customer service and they love what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
You also need to have the ability to deliver good customer service, don't you, in terms of customer policy or company policy.
so
Do you know what I mean? It's like they need to be enabled to do their role and do it effectively.
Yeah.
And if they're not enabled to do that, they can't deliver good customer
Sure,
service.
okay.
That's how it's the environment.
so that they've got the right skills.
It's the right skills, but also the company attitude towards it as well.
Okay, so right skills and support, I guess,
Yeah.
from the organisation.
Resources that
Oh, it was really important for me to help you to sort of walk in the customer's shoes a bit there, and to sort of think about what great customer service looks like. I think what we've kind of identified is that very broadly, probably, I think I can see that this down here is mainly the positive opposite of what you've identified here. So just quickly, we've got poor listening skills here. And then for the ladies who've been thinking about a positive experience, they mentioned paying attention and listening well. Then there was a piece around language, temperament and empathy. And down here we've got the need to be helpful, to apologise, which shows some empathy, and to be calm, so to have a calm temperament. There's also something around being treated like an individual and someone being very authentic in what they're doing and passionate about giving you a good service. So hopefully that's helped you to sort of get in touch with what great customer service looks like. Great, so I've just got a summary slide here of things that have come out from my experience and the evidence that I've come across, which hopefully, they're quite broad really, these points, but I think they probably map onto what you've said fairly neatly. So great customer service means always having a positive and helpful attitude, even if someone is complaining and there's something difficult to have to overcome. They're always professional. They're proactive and responsive, which we've talked about, prompt reply, and thinking about providing options. They're solution focused, so they're trying to sort whatever it is out for you. They take responsibility, so they're accountable. Something came up here about taking ownership, and not just sort of being someone who quotes company policy all the time. And obviously respectful as well. I think if there's kind of equality and respect within the relationship, then you're sort of halfway there really. But obviously it means that it's mutual respect, so you need to feel that you still respect them, and that they're respecting you. And at the moment I don't think that you're necessarily respecting Vodafone particularly at the moment, and I can understand that from what I've heard so far. Okay, so let's crack on. What I want to do next is just show you something which, again, from the experience that I've had, not only doing some training in customer service, but also the mystery shopping sort of evidence that I came across when I was working in that area. There's kind of a generic 6-step process for great customer service, which I'd just like to kind of offer to you for something to help you when you're ready to actually design your customer service strategy. So hopefully it fits with all the things we've already talked about. This 6-step process, it's a good challenge to think, well, how does that fit onto all the different channels that I'm thinking of using? So having a warm welcome, or at least a comfortable one, where you feel like you're being valued from the start and that you've bothered to click on something or you've bothered to pick the phone up. Making it quick and easy to identify the customer's needs, and there's very much this piece around being treated like an individual and not being kind of having to tick boxes, if you like, that you don't feel comfortable ticking. I think that's something that where the e-commerce side of things maybe hasn't quite managed it. Once you've identified what your customers' needs are, it's about exploring the options, and you mentioned options, and there can be a tendency to try and what they call solutioneer, where you're just trying to make people buy something because that fits for you. But actually, it's all about making sure that you're empowering the customer to feel that they can make a choice. Managing expectations, because let's face it, sometimes we just can't meet the customer's needs completely, particularly if we might have a complaint, or someone might have had some product or service that they're not happy with that genuinely wasn't up to scratch for whatever reason. It's about managing expectations about, can you give them a full refund, or is that not possible? It all depends on what what you can do and what your model allows, really.
Or was that product ever going to do what they wanted it to do
Yes,
in
exactly.
the first place?
Makes me think of beauty product.
If they're paying £104 for a 2-week holiday.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is it ever going to be the luxury product? Chances are the price would give you an indication it wasn't, but some people's expectations are, or they try it on.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to being as authentic as you can and ethical as a business as well, is not, not putting too much of a positive spin on things unless you genuinely believe that is the case, because it might come and bite you on the bum later when people complain that they haven't got what they thought they were going to get. In a customer service process, it's always important that the customer knows what the next steps are. And if you're having a personal interaction with them, then it's always good to summarise that back and say, okay, so let's just go through what's going to happen next and make sure they're happy with it. And ideally have a positive close as well. So if we go back to e-commerce, who's had the experience where they go through something, they've decided to buy it, they put their card details in, they're quite excited about the fact that they bought it, and then the whole purchase thing falls over and they think, oh no, I don't know if I've bought it or not. Yeah. That's for my mother on Mother's Day, I don't know, oh no, what's going to happen? No, there's all the stress attached to that is quite considerable. So that applies to that environment as well as the face-to-face and the telephone too. I think we need to think about, well, in our businesses, how do we make ourselves as accessible as possible within reason? So, okay, we put our numbers on our website, so we're not like that, but in day-to-day life, are we happy that we can be easily contacted? If someone's got a problem or if someone wants to place an order. And it's quite amazing, the people I talk to, who when I challenge them on that, sometimes that's not the case, and some of the companies that we mystery shopped said that they thought that they had that wrapped, and yet you presented their mystery shopping results back to them, and we said we did 100 calls to your call centre or whatever it was, and X% it rang for more than the number of rings that it's meant to ring for, and so that's where something like mystery shopping does actually work really well, and you don't have to get a big mystery shopping company to do a mystery shop for you. You could just get some people. You could say, look, I've set up my website or I've done this. Imagine you're someone who wants to buy a bicycle, one of these bicycles. Can you just go through the process and feed back to me on it? How was it? Did anything fall over?
The people that are selling the bikes that I'm interested in, the director, she sort of made a link between the e-commerce and the face-to-face stuff. And what she does, she kind of follows up every order purchased with a telephone conversation to say, what time do you want that delivered?
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
That's
and
a
then
brilliant
she'll
example.
say, what age is your child? You know, have you thought about, do they want the bigger handlebars? And it gives her that chance to kind of, not to sell the extra products, but to really offer a kind of...
That is a brilliant example of how to use the technology for all the great things that we know that it does, but to bring the human piece back in there. Just conscious of time, so cracking on a bit. What I did was, again, sort of from my experience and some of the mystery shopping results that I remember, because obviously I've been out of that for a while, but people don't change that much in terms of their expectations. We've got the 6 steps down the side that I've just been through with you, and then a sort of summary of what I think the key factors are. And I really, these are mainly about attitude and behaviour. So it's what we sometimes call the softer skills. And what I'd say, there's something around being competitive in this. So if you're in a marketplace where you've got a lot of competition and you need to differentiate yourself from the competition, I'd imagine you might be in that position because there's a lot of people selling the kind of product that you sell. So how can you make people want to buy from you, or indeed recommend you to other people? Because that's one of the big things around customer service, is the advocacy, so that when you've delivered great customer service and someone's received it, they tell someone else about it. So delivering great customer service, particularly in the soft skills area, can be a really big point of difference for you. Because no matter how wonderful, let's say, your local produce is, let's say, I don't know if it would be in your case, but let's think about kind of a veg box or something like that, where you've got the most beautiful product in there and it's adorable, the price is right and it tastes fantastic. But when you phone up to say, I need to cancel my box for a week, or you maybe have a little problem with the product at one stage and you need to do something about it, or maybe they've taken too much money out of your account for your direct debit. If you can't then get through to those people, or they're really offhand with you when you phone them up, it really doesn't matter whether the vegetables are good and whether they're a good price. You still don't feel very loved or cared for. So as I say, it is a people business, really, and every business is a people business. So these, as you can see, so a warm welcome, there needs to be positive, friendly, there needs to be a feeling of trust, that they can trust you. And I think the website thing, when you can't even find a telephone number or a name of who the company is, from my perspective, I don't do business with people like that because I can't trace them. It's interesting, actually, that quite a lot of what we're talking about tonight is focusing on sort of complaints, which is, and it is interesting, and that's fine, because but I find it interesting that when we're talking about customer service, quite often people immediately think about complaints and how. So what that says to me is, generally people don't have great experiences when they need a complaint sorted, or it's a bit of a surprise when it goes really well. But yeah, rather than thinking about the sort of generic everyday how to just make sure that we are delivering great customer service. But I've got a few stats later on which will help to understand how important it is to think about managing complaints well. But it's great because you're already underlining that for me.
Some companies kind of perhaps need to reframe it as seeing it as an opportunity rather than just as a complaint.
That's exactly what I think, and certainly the stats show that if you handle a complaint really well, you're actually much more likely to develop a very, very loyal customer. Whereas, if you don't, then obviously they'll probably very unlikely to come back. But they might actually be even more loyal as a result of having something resolved well. Okay, so just to sort of recap on this then, we've said that identifying, so it's just sort of putting some behaviours and attitudes onto, and skills actually, onto the different steps. So when this is sort of mainly if you're having personal interaction with someone, it's about being able to ask open questions. We've talked about listening, being non-judgmental, particularly if you're dealing with a complaint. So we all know that sort of being defensive when someone's complaining is not a good place to be. We've talked about patience, empathy, treating people as individuals and focusing on the positive. Exploring options was mentioned as well. You know, it's not just about saying, oh, I've got one size fits all, have this, because people need to feel again like they're being treated like individuals. And also managing expectations. We've already talked about being honest about what you can deliver and making sure as much as possible that people aren't expecting something that they're not going to get. The agreeing next steps is all about taking ownership really and making sure that you do that and people feel that you're going to do something constructive, and again the positive close is very similar to the warm welcome. So that's kind of rules for the road, certainly in terms of quite a lot of the interactions that I've measured through sort of customer service audits and mystery shopping. I just wanted to move on to help you think about, so if you can now think about your ventures that you're planning and or developing at the moment, and think about what we've talked about and note down what you think the actually let's do this as a group because there's not very many of us now, so let's do it as a group. I'll if you shout them out, I'll jot them down. So what do you think the most likely obstacles will be to you being able to deliver great customer service?
Availability.
Okay, great. So okay. So being contactable. Okay. What else? I've left that up because it might help you to think about steps.
Mine's kind of limited stock, so not having the right stock at the right time.
Okay, so being able to fulfil people's needs. Okay.
Not knowing enough about Amazonian birds.
Not knowing enough. Okay, so product knowledge, kind of thing. Okay. Having enough product knowledge. I'll put product in inverted commas. I'll put birds. So I know what to talk about.
Transport, logistics.
Okay.
Time.
So what we're thinking about now is what obstacles you feel you might have to delivering great customer service in your business.
Cost.
Pardon?
Cost.
Cost.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Timekeeping is a problem in South America because in my experience there, even if you're punctual, someone else will keep you waiting and then you have to keep the client waiting. So
Oh,
There's
okay.
a real problem with clash of cultures.
Right. So
It's a cultural thing, isn't it?
that's really useful. Yeah. So
Certainly important in international, if you're dealing in an international market.
yeah, that's a really good point. Anything else?
The value of customer service. So losing one customer might have a ripple effect, whereas winning that customer over with kind of a real kind of positive experience in regards to kind of resolving problems or kind of getting that kind of value response. Like,
okay, so do you mean that if the sort of almost the risk of if something does go wrong and someone has a poor experience, there's quite a high risk to that, because to win the value of that back is quite hard. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, especially with social media.
Oh yeah.
You know, because if you make the foolish mistake of undervaluing someone, then that can kind of almost crush a business, just that one mistake, because especially if it's something regarding safety.
But I think the point you make about social media is really, really important, because again, going back to the work that I did for the top 50 call centres, it was clear that people are using Twitter more and more, particularly if they've had a bad experience, to complain. And actually, it seems like it's quite a good place to go for that, because they tend to do something about it very quickly. So you know, there's kind of two sides to that. It's quite good as a consumer, and I've actually done it recently myself. I had an issue with EasyJet where I needed a refund, and this brings a few things in. Even the EasyJet, I just couldn't quite find on the website a contact number to ring about the fact that I needed to change this flight or cancel this flight. And yet when I clicked on the cancellations, it said you can cancel your flight up to X amount of time after you've booked it, and you only have to pay £13, blah, blah, blah. But actually trying to then do that, I didn't even get to the point where I was hanging on the phone. I didn't actually find the right number to ring. And I can't quite remember how I ended. Oh, that's right. So I went on, I just thought, I'll go on Twitter and just put, you know, this is ridiculous. And in fact, they sorted it out very, very quickly indeed. So.
But that's now. What about later on, when they get so many people doing this, it becomes kind of habitual.
Well, exactly.
They're going to start pulling their Twitter accounts, aren't they?
Exactly, which is why surely it's more cost effective to get it right first time.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it will have a positive effect. You know.
They're employing a massive amount of people because people are the commuters are all saying my train is running late, and they've got a whole team of staff there. And they literally log in at the beginning and say, hello, I'm John, and I'm here to answer your queries, and make it very sort of personal. But they've got, as you say, rather than pulling the account, they're actually embracing it and getting the message out there that they're doing something about it. So they're trying to turn it into good customer service in a way.
Yeah. And and I have seen some good examples of experiences with EasyJet. I have to be a bit careful. They used to be one of my clients years ago, and they do a lot around customer service, or did then. Anyway, but the whole website thing is very frustrating when you can't find the right number to call.
It's got exceptions to the rule, and there always is, and that's the Ryanair experience.
Oh yes,
Sort of capital out of giving bad customer experience.
Yeah.
Because they were taking the line, what do you expect for 1999?
Yes, they have been very clever. I think it has now run its course, and I think they are delivering a bit more than they were previously. Yeah.
One of the actions that happened.
Absolutely. So going back to your what you feel your obstacles will be or are currently to delivering great customer service, let's just recap on what we've got so far. So we've got being available, sufficiently available, because we know that poor customer service is when you just can't get through to someone and you need to, or at least be able to make some sort of contact. There's a point around actually being able to deliver a good experience through having the right product knowledge. There's a piece around actually logistics of transport, so being able to transport things and therefore deliver the service that you want to deliver. Time is an obstacle, so we all know that delivering good customer service pulls on a number of resources, and those resources include our time, or our team's time if we've got a team, our bottom line, so our costs, we in order to deliver good customer service, we've got to be prepared to spend some money. Cultural challenges as well. So if we're trying to engage with people who maybe have a different attitude towards things or different habits, for example, timekeeping, what's kind of acceptable in terms of when to rock up to a meeting, that can be hard too if you're trying to make some progress. And then also, if you do, and let's face it, it's very hard not to do this once in a while, somehow or other deliver an experience which isn't great, and it might have been due to something out of your hands. We've recognised that the impact of that, the negative impact, can be far greater than that one kind of example that those people can tell someone else. And they're people who probably won't come back to you unless, as Kieran said when he gave this example, you do a really good job of putting it right. And then you've actually potentially got the opportunity that Si mentioned, where someone loves you because you've done a great job of putting it right. So any other obstacles?
Suppliers.
What, sorry?
Suppliers.
That's another good one, because we're thinking about what, how I mentioned just now, even if it's not directly your fault, suppliers can let us down and really drop us in it. So that's another very good point. Well done. What I wanted to do was encourage you now. Obviously, this is the gloom and doom, but let's think about how we might think about overcoming these obstacles. There is, for some people, the option of considering outsourcing some of what we do, so that, and you might find that there's someone who's more experienced at it, who has got the setup to do it, and if you do the numbers, actually it works out better to just contract them to do it, as long as, a bit like our suppliers, we feel we can develop a good relationship with them, we can trust them, and all the things that we need for a great customer service with them. So what other things, how might we overcome some of these other obstacles, do you think? What about the availability one? I just think that one's quite an interesting one. How might we make sure that someone can always get in touch?
I think it's having priorities, making a kind of clear statement to say that, we will be back within 10 minutes of you contacting us, and just honouring it.
Great. So what you've just said plays into very nicely what I want, sort of my overall picture for this, for you to take away hopefully, is to be thinking about how you develop your own customer service strategy. And to do that, part of that is about setting some goals and standards. They call them KPIs some places, your key performance indicators, and that's what an example. So, we're going to aim to always answer, get back to people within X number of minutes. That would be a KPI. So it's about setting standards. So, performance. And if you've got other people working for you, making sure that you communicate those to them and that they understand and that they've got the skills as well to meet those standards. So I think that is about, it goes back to honesty, and I think that if somebody rings up or they contact or whatever and they want something that you don't deliver or you can't deliver, then they're not within your target market, and it's about being brave and so the best way to deliver good service there is to just be very polite and gracious, and listen to what they want, explain politely that you can't help them, but maybe they could try X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I mean, I always think it's a good idea to, the market, where you sit in the market, who the competition is. I don't think there's anything wrong with actually sometimes referring people. I can't do that, but you might try such and such.
I do it a lot. I do it a lot with my research business, because we know what kind of research we like doing and that we're good at doing. And that goes back to what your friend said earlier, that there's something about we can only really deliver great service if we believe in and love what we do, long term. So there's no point in me saying to someone, okay, I can do your product development research on toilet rolls, because it just doesn't float my boat. Okay, I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah.
We've got what I've got is just a slide here where, so we talked about that. So these are the kinds of things that I came up with about what the obstacles and challenges are. And as we've said, these slides are available for you, so you can just add this into the mix. I think we've covered much of it already. So in terms of interaction, particularly when you're being challenged on something difficult or you're dealing with a complaint, maintaining positive verbal and non-verbal behaviour is important. There's a whole other kind of area to talk about in terms of how we appear to people and what our body language says, and making good eye contact, etc. However, we need to layer on top of that the question about cultural differences and what kind of non-verbal behaviour works in different places. But it's being aware of that, really. Needing to achieve consistency, we've talked about, that can be a challenge, and it basically relies mainly on resources, and also having some standards set. Ensuring availability, responsiveness, we've already talked about that. Generally in your organisation, developing a great customer service organisational culture, because when you're at a point where you've got other people representing your brand, you need to know that they're doing it the way you want them to, and that you're giving them the skills and the information they need to be able to do it. And then we come to the thing that you asked about right at the beginning, which is how do you measure customer service? I haven't got time to cover that in detail today. We've already talked about mystery shopping. If anyone's interested in understanding a bit more about that, I've got a very good associate who would be very happy. In fact, I'm sure she'd come along and have a chat at some point about what she does. She's a sort of customer service consultant, really. And also customer satisfaction feedback is important, but that's sort of more about the outcome. And I think it is important to try to measure the actual experience as well as what the outcome is, to understand where to make the improvements if you need to.
It's particularly important if you're just a sole trader, because you can obviously get direct access, you've got interactions directly, but when you're employing third parties, whether that be employees or other agents to deliver services on your behalf, it's really important to...
And having a sort of service level agreement, I know it all sounds a bit bureaucratic, but it can be quite simple, but having something that you have an agreement with, if people are doing fulfilment for you, or even if someone's taking phone calls on your behalf or writing emails. Yeah, exactly. It's, you'll have worked very, very hard to build it up. You need to look after it. So finally, that's just some more examples of solutions, or sort of managing the risk, if you like, of these obstacles we've talked about. But I think, as I say, we've kind of talked about most of this already, but it will be all available for you. So finally, I think, just in case we weren't sure, why is this so important? And I've accessed some facts and figures. This is actually quite useful for you possibly when you need to gather some evidence or facts and figures yourselves for funding bids or anything where you're wanting to put some sort of compelling argument together. There's so much available on the web now. Help Scout is a really good website, and these just came from an open source document that they put together, which was, I think it was 75 facts and figures about customer service. They're mainly American based, but America's a big country with lots of people in it, so it's probably pretty relevant anyway. So for marketing metrics, there's 5 to 20% probability of selling to a new prospect, so a brand new customer that you've never spoken to before. If you look at the numbers, apparently that's the kind of rough estimate of what the probability is. But the probability of being able to sell to an existing customer, someone who you already have a relationship with, is 60 to 70%. So I think it's just really important to remember to look after your customers, and as soon as they have made an inquiry or bought something from you, they're such a precious resource. And treat them well and they will treat you well. And hopefully they'll become advocates so that they will recommend you, and then you get even more value from them. News of bad customer service, which we talked about earlier, which we seem to be able to recall much better than good customer service, reaches more than twice as many ears as praise for good service. And that came from the White House Office of Consumer Affairs.
How much that's been affected by social media, whether that's actually worse now.
It could be. I mean, I remember when, years ago when I first started designing mystery shopping programmes, we had a stat then which demonstrated this, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a much stronger stat now than it was before. A typical business hears from 4% of its dissatisfied customers. So what does that tell you?
So what does happen to the other 96%?
Brilliant, exactly. What's happened to them? They haven't even bothered to tell you that they had a bad experience. Why should they? They've just gone, and they've probably gone and told all those other people about it. So that's quite potent, I think. In the last year, 67% of customers have hung up on the phone out of frustration that they couldn't talk to a real person. And this goes back to that whole using technology well or badly. And finally, 70% of buying experiences are based on how the customer feels they are being treated. So regardless of all this tech, it does come down to the softer stuff, what I was talking about earlier. And if we don't look after that and monitor it and make sure that it's in good shape, it's going to be a massive setback. So hopefully that gives you a good argument for focusing on your great customer service delivery. And if you've got any questions about it, let me know. I think some of you have got my contact details already, but they're on the slide there as well. So I hope that was useful, and that you feel that you've learnt something, or at least it's crystallised some things for you that you can take into whatever you work on. So
thank you so much. I mean, I just wanted to thank Louise and just simply say a couple of points before we go about social enterprise. There is a perception by the public about certain organisations and certain types of organisations about what customer service they're going to get. I worked with Fee many years ago for the local authority, and I can always remember somebody speaking at a conference, and they came on and they said, talking about customer service and the local council, and they said, well, you know what it's like. When I was young, I used to walk down the street and someone would shout out, who cut your hair? The council, because it was had a reputation for bad service. And certain organisations, there's a perception about them. I have to say, social enterprises are often perceived as being people that are amateurs that are going into the world of business. And there's a bit of a resistance that you have to overcome about as operating as a social enterprise sometimes to demonstrate that you are a professional outfit. And that is why good quality customer service is of absolute paramount importance if you're operating, because you don't be regarded as a social enterprise as being, well, they're a bunch of amateurs really. You can't afford to have that. And that's why we put this session on.